You can join us live for our next BookFunnel webinar. Check out the link in the description for more details. We hope to see you there.
So enough of that. Let's get down to it. All right. So what are we going to cover today? Well, let's first talk about what it is that goes into a landing page. We're going to talk about some of the elements of landing pages, BookFunnel landing pages specifically. A lot of this stuff can apply to non-BookFunnel landing pages too. So I don't want you to assume that I'm only talking about BookFunnel landing pages. There's a lot of overlap here, folks. There's a lot of overlap. We're going to talk about conversion metrics and goals. After that, once we've kind of done the anatomy of a landing page, we're going to talk about conversion metrics because, well, we want a landing page that converts, but what does that mean? And without knowing what we're aiming for, right, or knowing what a good conversion rate is, really, that's the answer that we want to come up with, then, you know, it's a shot in the dark, right? You may have landing pages that are converting very well already, and you might think that they're not. And really, the issue is not the conversion rate, it's something else. And so we're going to talk about that. We will also be talking about how you can optimize each of the individual elements of your landing pages. We'll talk about that. And then custom themes, how you can implement those. We'll actually go through creating, I don't know if we'll create a custom theme from scratch today, but I'll show you on the dashboard later too how we do that, and some tips for coming up with color palettes. This is something that we have actually covered in a previous webinar. We'll be touching on it again today, but we went in depth on this in one of our previous webinars too. And then we're going to talk about social proof. I gave it its own slide because I feel like it's something you can include in multiple places, and it's very effective. So we're going to have a brief chat about that at the end, and then we'll get to the Q&A segment after that. So what goes into a landing page, right? What are the elements of a landing page? And right here, this is actually a screen grab of a BookFunnel landing page. This was, and I chose this one specifically. You'll notice it's vertical because this is a screen grab that I took from my phone for two reasons. Number one, it fits better on the page because I'm going to have a whole lot of text in that blank space in just a moment. But most of your readers are going to be coming to your landing pages on mobile. And so I want you to think of mobile first when you're thinking of your landing pages. This can be tricky because typically when you're customizing your landing pages and you're on the BookFunnel dashboard, you're probably on your laptop, on your desktop, on a computer, and that's how you're looking at it. And it can be a little deceptive, not intentionally, right? But you are going to be previewing the page, or once you've created it, you might click the link to view the page, and you're going to see it on your computer. The majority of your readers are probably going to be on a mobile device, no matter how they stumble upon your landing page, right? Are you running Facebook ads? Well, most of those Facebook ads are going to be seen on a mobile device. They're going to be clicked on a mobile device, and they're going to wind up on your landing page or your website or wherever it is from a mobile device. Right? Is your book in a group promo, right, on BookFunnel? And that's maybe what you're looking at. You want to get a better conversion from the group promos you're participating in. Well, group promos get sent out by email, and most people check their email on a mobile device. Not everybody. There are people who do it on their desktop, but that's why I have this specifically mobile image of a landing page here for us to look at. Because what you'll notice is not everything is right here. This is literally just the window as it opened up. And you'll notice not everything is there immediately, right? There's a lot of things that are below the fold, so to speak, and we'll be talking about that here in a moment. So for starters, your book cover. Right? This is actually the biggest selling point of your landing page is your book cover. You can have a very basic landing page, but if it has a great book cover, that can sometimes do it. I've seen authors who have a landing page where they've just used all the BookFunnel defaults and no page text at all, no description, and it has an awesome conversion rate, and they have thousands of downloads, right? Right? Because they have a really good cover. And so this is where, when I was talking about how this can get kind of personal, right? Your cover, I know you hopefully you're attached to the book covers that you have for your books. You should be, right? because it's like that visual representation of what you've created. So totally understandable. But sometimes you have to acknowledge when it's not working. Actually, this is something I had to do recently. I have a 10 book series in science fiction, and the cover of the first book just wasn't doing it, right? My artist did a stellar job, phenomenal. It's a wonderful piece of artwork, right? But as a book cover, not so much. And it's because it was one of the first book covers I commissioned from him, and I didn't really know what I was asking for, right? And so I had to take a step back and realize, okay, this cover's not working. And then I had to also bring that up to him, which was a delicate conversation because I didn't want him to be offended. I wanted to explain, you did a great job. No complaints. This is my fault. And I had to take ownership of that and be like, I have a new vision for this. And then he produced something that just floored me. Probably the best cover he's made for me yet. And it's I've seen the results of that. So I can tell you from experience, this is true, right? Now, sometimes your cover, and this depends by genre, it can be very simple as well and still be very effective. A lot of this is dependent on your genre, the expectations of readers in your genre, and all that stuff, right? But don't underestimate the cover. You have to bring that to the table when you make a BookFunnel landing page, right? BookFunnel doesn't make a cover for you, right? So you have to bring that to the table. But I mentioned this first because it is the first thing they're going to see on the page, right? And so I'd be lying to you if I told you that, oh yeah, the cover doesn't matter. It's all the text, right? That would be a lie, right? Now, the headings on your page, that's those two lines of text that in this case appear immediately under the cover of the book. This is what is going to be called heading 1 and heading 2 under your landing page details when you're editing your landing page. And I personally like the tagline and call to action combo because it's very simple, right? Each one of them gets to do their job, and it's compressed it here into a nice sort of little bite-sized sandwich. In the tagline, which is that first heading, it's the largest text there on the landing page. This should be something catchy, one sentence at most, right? I wouldn't get much more wordy than I've done here on this example landing page, right? But something that is going to give the reader an idea of what to expect and entice them to download the book or purchase the book, whatever it is you want them to do. It's going to entice them to accept the call to action, which here we have on the second heading. Download your copy of, right, book title, right? So I find this is the most effective way to use the headings on your landing page. There are some other things that you can do, definitely, depending on the context, right? But for the most part, if you're using a sales landing page or this is your reader magnet, it's tried and true. The tagline call to action combo, it's really simple. And that download your copy of book title is one of the default BookFunnel options. I think it works pretty well, right? If this were a sales landing page, it would say buy your copy of, or you might have to tinker with that a little bit, right? Yeah, on a sales landing page, right? To be fair, right? But here on this is just I think this is just an email collection page that works. What do you want them to do? Tell them what to do, right? Now, the button text. This should be a variation of your call to action in most cases. Notice here, though, one thing, and this is maybe kind of subtle, because you might be saying, well, if it's just the call to action repeated, but notice how it's repeated in the first person. If you want them to take action clicking that button, right? Essentially, by clicking the button, they are saying, I'm going to get my book, right? It's a good way to kind of disguise the fact that you're just presenting that call to action a second time. And there's a reason why this is the default BookFunnel option for your button text, right? Because that putting it in first person uh, there's a psychological element to that makes it more effective. Now you don't have to do that, right? You can change it, you can tinker with it, but that's something I want you to notice, right? That essentially that second heading and the button text are the call to action. They're both the same call to action. What do you want them to do? You want them to get the book. In this case, it's a free book, right? So we want them to download it, right? Really, we want them to join our mailing list. We might not want to come out and say, join my mailing list. No, we want them to download the book, right? Download your copy of the book. And then we have the button there, get my book. It's phrased in the first person, right? This is another very effective way to repeat your call to action and disguise it so that they're not just seeing the same thing over and over again, right? Both of those lines are telling them to do the same thing, just in a different way, right? Then we have a sample link on this landing page. This actually might be a simple download page now that I'm thinking about it because of the way this is phrased, but this link could appear on an email collection page or a sales landing page. In this case, it's saying start reading in your browser. So that's technically another call to action, which I want to point out here. And we'll talk about competing calls to action, right? And what you should include and how much to include. But if you do want to include a sample link, right, you can do so on all of your landing pages. This can sometimes convince those readers who are on the fence. So it might be something you want to include. The readers who are like ready to go and your tagline hooked them and they're probably not going to care about reading the sample. They're just going to get the book. So I don't feel that this harms your conversion rate, really, when we're talking about this is just for those who are on the fence, like, I don't know, maybe is this right for me? And then they click on the sample and they check it out. And you can also include a call to action at the end of your sample through your sample settings, which you can set up as well. So there's this whole funnel they can go through, right? Now, your page text, you'll notice it's not here on this image because they'd have to scroll down a little bit in order to see it, right? So that's actually farther down, hence no arrow pointing to it because it's below. They'd have to scroll down. Most readers on a mobile device are going to scroll at least a little bit. So they are going to see your description, even if it doesn't show up immediately on the page, right? But it is something for you to know on a mobile device. This is what they're going to see immediately. And if this doesn't sell it, then yeah, they might not scroll and read the description, right? They might, go somewhere else, right? But your book's description it will be what goes here most of the time, like your blurb, whatever it happens to be. But there are some other things that you can include in your page text. This is something I think we'll talk a little bit more about in the Q&A because it's so it's kind of situational and I don't want to like tell you, oh yeah, you should put this here or this there. If you want to include more information on your landing page, though, you can. You just have to be careful how you do it. And so we don't want to muddy the water and have, a huge info dump. I've seen before where authors have they've put their first chapter of their book in the page text of the description. Now, that is a logical, I understand how they got to that. It makes sense. But unfortunately, when you go and you open up that landing page, it's not an effective way to deliver that. That's why actually we added the sample link. And that's one of the reasons why. Because it's a more effective way for them to read a sample, right? So there's room for more stuff down there. It just depends on how you do it. And we'll get to that a little bit more in the Q&A segment when we're looking at building a landing page. And I'll show some examples of that. And then you have your themes and your colors. You'll notice here we have a custom logo up in the upper left-hand corner. You can upload a logo when you use a custom theme. Otherwise, this is the BookFunnel logo. And obviously, this should be a good fit for your cover. Some of the BookFunnel defaults are what I call unoffensive, right? It's like a white and gray and blue, or like black and gray and blue, and it's pretty softer tones. It's not like bright, glaring colors. We understand we run into this problem somewhat frequently because our color our primary color for BookFunnel is orange. And so like we can't really use black and orange, for example, right? So we don't plaster orange all over your landing page. The BookFunnel logo on your landing pages is also kind of muted and so forth, right? But this depends on what you want to do. I've had some authors ask, like, does it really improve my conversion to have my own logo and a custom theme? Well, I think a custom theme or at least an accent color can make your landing page more attractive. And there are times where, depending on the reader and under certain circumstances, your logo might engender more trust. But there's sometimes where a third-party logo can also engender trust too, because especially if they've been scrolling through Facebook and then they click your ad to go download your reader magnet and they see, oh, BookFunnel, that's like a third-party thing. Okay, I get it. They're working through, I trust this, right? Which is not just me trying to hard sell you on BookFunnel, right? You're already here. What I'm trying to say is that it engenders trust sometimes for them to see the BookFunnel logo and know that this is being done legitimately. They're not going to be giving away their email to some random person on the internet just to scam them out of their email address, for example, right? Uh, whether or not that's a factor for you is going to probably depend on your audience to a certain degree. There's a number of other factors, but don't worry if you don't have your logo there. We don't see that it's a huge detriment, right, if you don't have your own logo on your landing pages yet. It's nice to have, though, and we do recommend you do it, right? So conversion metrics. Remember, we talked about how we need to know what a good conversion rate is. So that's the question. What is a good conversion rate? 100 people show up to your website from wherever, right? That's their first step. They're in the first stage of the funnel. By the time they get all the way to the end, how many have accepted your call to action and done what you wanted them to do? Join your mailing list, purchased a book, right? What is a good conversion rate? I'm going to open the Zoom chat and I want everybody to type what you think a good conversion rate is in the Zoom chat. I mean, you don't have to, but throw it in there. I want to get an idea for what everybody's thinking. Vash, it depends. You answered with it depends. Right? 100%. And you should be teaching this webinar. I should hand it over to you, right? Okay. So a couple things, because I'm seeing some larger numbers here, right? 33%, 40%. And Emma, yes, it always depends. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, it does depend, but it often depends on, like, are you looking at the whole picture? Because what we're really talking about here, and this is why I use the website example, because I think this drives it home a little bit more. Someone lands on your website from somewhere. They're poking around your website, they're looking at stuff, they see a call to action to join your newsletter, right? Out of that 100 people who just show up on your website, 2 to 5%. 2 to 5% is good. Is good when we're talking about the big picture. Yeah, it is probably lower than you were thinking. And there's a few reasons for this, because, for example, your conversion rate, let's say you send out, to give an example, you send a newsletter out and your readers click on a link to purchase your new release. Your conversion rate is going to be higher because they're predisposed, right? They've already gone through all those steps of the funnel. And so this isn't going to apply as neatly to readers that are already part of your audience. You should expect a higher conversion rate with them, right? You should expect a higher conversion rate with them. Really, they've already been converted. They're already on your newsletter. If they're clicking the back matter link in your book to the next book or to your newsletter, it's high because they read your book and they liked it and they were already converted. Something converted them along the way. They are right. They've already gone through steps of that funnel. And so if you're looking at that individual conversion rate, what you're really looking at is you're not looking at the big picture. You're looking at a smaller microcosm, right? And so really they are the 2 to 5%, right? This number of 2 to 5% is going to make a lot more sense if you're putting your landing pages out in front of new readers, right? Readers who haven't seen it before. So if your book is in group promos a lot, there are going to be people who've seen your book multiple times in the same group promo. And that might mean that they might skip over it because they've downloaded it already. So don't let a low conversion rate discourage you all the time. Or maybe they're finally ready to give your book a chance, right? And they just don't download every single book that they see in a group promo. So a lot of this is contextual. But the big thing to understand here is it's a numbers game. So getting more eyeballs on your landing page, getting more people at the front of the funnel is oftentimes more effective than trying to micromanage your conversion rate, right? If you're sitting at 3% conversion, right? Let's say you're running Facebook ads, you're getting a 3% conversion. Sure, there's little things you can tweak here and there. There's some things you could improve on. And you should definitely improve on those. But what you probably want to do is increase your ad spend and get more eyeballs on your landing page because 3% falls between 2 and 5, right? And so your conversion rate is on point. And in fact, your conversion rate might not even be accurate because you might not have a big enough sample because not enough people have seen the ad. So it's a numbers game, right? 2 to 5% of 100 is 2 to 5, right? 2 to 5% of 10,000, right? It's an example of this. Um, Phone batteries, cell phone batteries. This is not directly related to self-publishing, but uh, you hear about a cell phone company that made a new phone and the cell phone batteries are exploding on everybody and they're catching on fire. And they tell you, well, it's really only 0.01% of all devices that this is happening to. But they made 10 million of them. So 0.01% is a lot in terms of quantity, right? I hope that drives that home. You want to have, if you're hitting this conversion rate, and again, this is from the beginning of your funnel, right? We're not necessarily talking here about your existing subscribers, your already converted readers. We're talking about converting new readers who have never read your book, never signed up for your newsletter, never seen you before, right? 2 to 5% of those, what you need to do is maximize the number of those people that you see, right? You need more at bats, really, is what it is, right? Also, what are you offering? This will also change the conversion rate. This can happen as well. Are you advertising a free reader magnet? Is this a $10 box set? Right? Does it have a big price tag associated with it? Is this your very first book in an unfinished series that you're selling for $2.99? All of these things affect your conversion rate as well. So you can't ignore that, right? You can't ignore in fact, I have personal experience with this as well. Facebook ads, pointing them at the first book in my, like I said, 9, now 10 book series. It was awful. I was trying everything. And I did some research, looked at my genre, saw what other authors were doing. I have no shame, so I'm just gonna copy what they're doing well. They've been doing well for a while, and so now it's a box set, and now my ads are working because I changed what I was offering. So thank you, I appreciate the claps. Right, right. I changed what I was offering, and maybe sometimes that's what it is. Maybe we get the idea in our heads that okay, like I want to grow my mailing list and I want to put my reader magnet out there. Well, okay, sure. Where are you putting it? Right? In group promos? Yeah, you're probably going to do well. You're going to have a harder time like pointing Facebook ads to a reader magnet than you will in group promos. But you probably have a better time giving away a free book through Facebook ads than you will trying to sell the first book in an unfinished series, for example. Right? So you have to consider those things. What is it you're offering? Maybe you need to be offering something else or putting something else at the front, right? This affects your landing page conversion, right? A poor conversion rate is often an indicator of some issue further on down the line or ahead of it, right? Prior to it, right? We looked at all those elements of a landing page. If there's an issue with one of those elements, something's off, something's not right, that could be why your conversion rate is no good, right? For me, it was my book cover, right? It was my book cover that was causing issues for me. I fixed my book cover, my conversion rates improved, right? We just talked about it could be the product. What is it you're offering? Or again, it's an element of the landing page itself. Do you have the first whole chapter of the book in your page description? That might turn some readers off. Do you have, I've also seen where that first heading authors, and usually this is, and I'm, by the way, I'm not saying this to disparage any of these folks. These are lessons that I want you guys to learn. And we've helped other authors with this sort of stuff where the first time you make a landing page, you maybe don't understand exactly what you're doing. It's all new, right? And so totally understandable. But sometimes I've seen authors will put multiple sentences in their first heading. And that text is really big. And so then it pushes the button further on down the page and it just looks kind of clunky. And that's why you have to preview your pages and make sure it all looks good. And so you've got to go through all of those steps, right? Right. To make sure that it looks good. There's probably some issue somewhere. Again, it could just be that you're targeting the wrong audience. Right? If you put your science fiction novel into a contemporary romance promo, conversion is probably not going to be very good in that specific context because you're targeting the wrong audience, right? Even more so when we're talking about running ads, right? I mean, there's lots of ways to target audiences with ads, especially if you're talking about Facebook, but there could be an issue with that too. So it's not always the landing page, but sometimes it is, and you have to take stock of that. So how do we optimize those elements of a landing page? Well, first, you want to get them on the hook with that tagline. That's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you. I recommend your tagline be one sentence. I like to end my taglines with an ellipsis too. It's a style choice. Otherwise, I would end it with no punctuation, but keep it short. One sentence, have it grab their attention and generate interest. One sentence can do a lot of work, right? If you find the right sentence. Technically, I suppose sometimes it can be multiple sentences. If those sentences are like 2 to 3 words, right? Like think of like famous slogans even, right? I came, I saw, I conquered, right? That's 6 words, 3 sentences, technically, I suppose you could say, but right. It sticks in your mind because it's short and to the point and it communicates the message, right? You want to be direct with your call to action. It should be clear and it should be simple. What do you want them to do? Tell them to do it, right? Don't beat around the bush. Don't treat it be like, well, I put a lot of work into this book. I hope you really like it. If you get the chance to, be confident and have the confidence, just say, buy my book. Buy it, right? Or download your free copy. Get it now. Have the confidence to say that, right? You don't want to go overboard and be too salesy, get your free copy now, that avoid coming off in that respect, but be confident, right? To an author, to you, like this, I like to read other authors' blurbs all the time. And I read a lot of landing pages because obviously in my line of work I do, right? And I'm therefore reading authors' blurbs. When an author is confident and they're clear in what they're communicating, it's effective. It can be very effective, right? So if you're thinking like, oh, this is my first book and I don't have a whole lot of reviews yet, and I can't really, I don't want to be like pushy and come off like, oh, this is the best book ever, or like how every author, this is an opposite example. Every author has that social proof of this is the best book in insert genre I've ever read, right? Okay, that might be going a little too far, but be confident and be clear. Your description should be kind of like an elevator pitch, right? In a way, right? Like practice this, right? We're all writers. This happens to me all the time. I'm really bad at this. Somebody asks me, "Oh, you're a writer. What do you write?" And I can tell them the genre. What's your book about? Well, it's about these, it's in space and there's these, aliens. It's right. In person, I'm no good at it, right? But I suggest you practice it either, in person if you want to say it out loud. I think that can be helpful to some folks, or just practice writing your description. Write the description for your book set yourself a limit. You're going to write 6 sentences in 3 paragraphs, 2 sentences each, and just write 10 variations of your description. Okay. That's your homework. Now you'll go home and you'll actually write 2 or 3 of them and you'll be fine. And that was my goal, right? To get you to just try writing it again, and you're going to find, okay, this really works and I like how this jives. It should be just a few paragraphs at most, and it should have some punchy verbiage in there. No, not too many excess words, right? Cut out the excess, and it should communicate the genre and expectations that your readers have. Sometimes this means you have to actually directly tell them, right? This book is I know in romance this is very common, and I don't have an example off the top of my head because this is not something that I myself have to do as often. But right, this book is this type of romance, and it has a happy ending, right? That could be included in there as well. You might not consider that you're describing the book, but more directly, right? Uh, to link or not to link. So this is about that sample link, but it can be about any other link as well. Really, this is about like an alternative call to action, because you'll remember on that landing page, we had the call to action in the heading, and we had the button with the call to action, and then we had the link to read the sample in their browser. If you're going to include a link on your landing page to anything, whether it's the sample or it's to, something else, I would try to limit it to just one link, one alternative call to action, what I'm going to call it, toward the top of the page. You don't want everything to be too muddy. It's kind of like, hey, buy this book, right? Like on a sales landing page, it could be, here's the box set for $5, go buy it. Or you can read the reader magnet for free. And you're providing an alternative to the person who's not convinced yet. Again, this could be a sample link, this could be an external link, something like that, whatever you want it to be. But you don't want to clutter the top of the page with calls to action. If you have some other things you want to link to, the bottom of the page under your description, below the fold, so to speak, right, is a place where you can put some of that stuff. And I'll show how to do that here in a little bit, right? But you don't want to clutter the top of the page around the button, right? You make the page yours by customizing the theme, the accent color, make it visually attractive. I recommend that you keep your color palettes simple. I have a tool for this. I didn't make it. Canva has a tool for this, excuse me, where you can upload a book cover. I've showed this before. Some of you are familiar with it. But if you're not, you can upload a book cover and it will generate a color palette from the colors in your book cover. That's actually what I did to create that landing page I showed previously. And I think it's pretty effective if you're having trouble coming up with colors, right? Contrasting colors are also very effective. So think of things like white on black, right? Or, in that page, I had a dark purple and kind of a lighter peach color that made that text stand out, right? It just makes the text pop. I've already mentioned this staying above the fold. a couple times, but you want to be mindful of the fact that you have limited space on your reader's screen, especially if they're on mobile. They're maybe going to scroll one length of their screen, right, initially. And by that point, you want them to have made the decision, right? This means they're going to see the cover, they're going to see the headings, they're going to see the call to action on the button, any link that you might be providing there as an alternative call to action, and then they're probably going to scroll and see the book description, the page text, the top of the page text, and by that point, you want them to decide what to do, right? Long-winded descriptions, excessive page text can kill your conversion rates. There are some things that you can put down there below the fold. Again, if we're talking on mobile, that's like below your book's description. We're keeping the description relatively short. There are some things you can kind of put down there. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Things like you can include some additional links in that context. Reviews go well immediately underneath the description. And in fact, we're about to talk about that here in just a moment. So social proof. This is something I think gets neglected on landing pages by some authors. And so I dedicated an entire slide to this because social proof is huge when it comes to converting clicks to downloads and sales. It is an indicator to the reader that they're probably going to like your book, but really what I'm trying to say is that it's worth the risk. I want you to think of it from that perspective. It's worth the risk because this reader liked it, right? Because your reader is taking a risk, especially if they're buying your book, right? And I know you might not think of it this way, but think of, you know, your own buying behaviors. You're gonna, let's say, you need to buy a new pressure washer, right? And you go online. I'm picking something random because this is true about anything. It applies to anything, not just books. And you're going to go online and you're going to read the reviews. And oftentimes you're going to go and you're going to try to find the negative reviews and people, telling you, oh, this thing's a piece of junk. Don't buy it. This one's better, right? And sometimes you read those negative reviews and you realize this person probably wasn't like knowing what they were doing, or they didn't know how to use it, or they had some other issue with it, it sounds like. And you use that to help make your decision. Right? So I don't want you to underestimate this. Including reviews is great. I've even seen authors include negative reviews that actually sell their book better than their positive reviews. Because if you get somebody who leaves a 1-star review and is like, this book contained all of this stuff and it was offensive, the readers who like that stuff are gonna be like, cool, sign me up. If that happens to be, I've seen this work in a lot of cases actually, right? So don't always be afraid of those 1-star reviews, especially if they're on some big rant. They can be very effective marketing. Maybe don't always include those on your landing pages. I've seen those work really effective in ads, right? Where some author will share like a 1-star review. I think, and this is, you got to keep in mind, this audience might not be your audience, but the review that I'm recalling is somebody left a 1-star review. They're like, there was profanity in the first few pages, and it was really just crass and whatnot. And there were so many reactions to that ad on Facebook. People were like, oh, sounds like that's the book for me. Because it was an indicator of, oh, you're not the target audience. And so you might not have any profanity in your books. That's totally fine. I'm not judging, right? That's not what it's about. What it's about is that somebody might leave a 1-star review or a really negative review, but they're really just pointing out all the things that demonstrate that they just weren't the target audience. And so sometimes that's useful for you as well. A little bit of a bunny trail there. I apologize. Including reviews from readers and even critics, if you have those, at the end of your description is a great way to seal the deal. Like they've gone through this whole, just think about it. Like they're seeing the cover. Ooh, that's nice. They read the tagline. Okay, I'm going to download the book. There's the button. Oh, this is the book. This is what this is all about. And this reader likes it. Yeah, I'm getting it. Right. That's the cascade of events that happens. Right. But you can also include some stats as social proof. like the number of sales, the number of copies downloaded, awards that the book has received. If you've got those, pat yourself on the back. I don't have any. I'm not a cool kid like some of you guys, but if you've got those things, yeah, put them out there, right? And there's actually, there should be a variable. I believe we've got a variable for this that allows you to show the total number of copies downloaded. And so if you've got a landing page, especially like for your reader magnet, has an impressive number of downloads on it, probably in the hundreds to thousands, it might be worth showing that number off, right? On there. Yeah, go for it. Be confident enough to do that, right? And then if you don't have reviews, ask for them, right? For those of you who are just starting out, I want to talk to you guys as well, because maybe this is your first book. Maybe you are just starting. You have a very small audience. Maybe you have 10 people who have read your book or are on your mailing list. Ask for feedback. Even if you're not asking them to go leave a review, ask them to give feedback directly to you. You have permission to do that. And yeah, if all else fails, ask your mom. Maybe. Um, I've seen authors do this as well, where they're like, this is a totally unbiased review from my dad. He loved my book, right? Sometimes you can inject some humor in there. But what I'm trying to say is get that feedback from somewhere, get some social proof from someone. You don't think that just because you don't have any reviews on your book yet, on Amazon, on Goodreads, wherever it happens to be, that you can't get social proof. You can. Sometimes you just have to ask for it. Okay. So that brings us to the end of that presentation. I do want to jump over to the dashboard, but I know we probably got some questions. The chat, I'm sure everybody's in there arguing, geez, Jack doesn't know what he's talking about. He's kind of crazy. I'm sure Emma's in there contradicting me. All right. Aren't you, Emma? I'm kidding. I'm kidding, by the way. But let's get to some of the questions that they might have had in there. Emma and Kelly, what do they want to know? Let's answer a few questions, and then we can get to the dashboard, and we can do some stuff. But if there's some really like specific questions that people have, then I want to get to those first, and then we can dive into the dashboard.
If we have time after the questions, you may want to show the dashboard, where the landing page is, because we got a few of them.
Yep. In fact, I will switch to, let me make sure I'm sharing the correct window. So I'm here. So if a question comes up with something related to the dashboard, we'll be there already.
Okay. I'm probably going to say this wrong. Dineen. Do you recommend each book have its own look, or to create a template that reflects your branding? I assume she means author branding.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a good question. When it comes to your custom themes, a couple things that you can do. So for example, we're here on this one, on this custom theme. This is one that I created for a specific book. And so let me see if I can find it here. I should be able to. I just gotta rearrange that window. Okay, there we go. This is not an actual like book. This is a demo page here. Honestly, this color this is not contrasting enough in my opinion. But yeah, this is specifically from this book cover. If this were part of a series, I have another example here of a series. And this series, again, this is another demo series, has a very uniform color palette, right? All of the books kind of have the same look. They're working with the same color palette. Then I think it makes sense to have one theme that well, it makes sense in lots of ways. It makes sense to use a theme in this case that has some we're pulling colors from the cover. It makes sense to do that because it's part of the experience for the reader, right? If, however, your covers are a little bit all over the place in terms of like the color palette that they're using or things like that, then it might be a situation where instead of having a different theme for each page, maybe you have a different accent color for the individual pages, right? Maybe you like an example here. Let me pull, let's just grab one of our pages. We should have this one. Let's take a look at this, right? So this is this is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And these are the default settings for a landing page here. So you might use a kind of neutral background, maybe a light gray, maybe a darker gray, something like that. And you can change the color, the accent color of this button, or maybe your theme just changes the color of the button or something small. But generally, I think it's easier to keep it simple and create one theme that's going to work for, if you have a series, for your whole series. This is kind of a personal choice too, because there are some authors where like color is maybe they even have a difference. What am I trying to say here? They're using color as an indicator for the books in the series. I've seen this before where like the first book is green and the next one is blue and then it's yellow, and like the color is very popping and it's part of the presentation of the book cover itself. And so I don't want to give you one like, oh yeah, it's this or it's that. Either way, it has to be complementary. And so if you create one theme that you use for all of the books in your series, it should be complementary to all those books in your series. If one book just doesn't look good, doesn't jive with that theme because of the color palette or something like that, I would simplify the theme. Or like in this case, this is already simplified. All of the covers kind of share the same color palette, so they can all use the same color palette in the cover, right? Obviously, that's a decision you've made long before you made it to creating a landing page. And so you might not be able to back up and make all those changes just yet. I totally understand that. But generally, I recommend having one that you use for a series. And if there's lots of variation in your covers, try to keep it simple, maybe a somewhat neutral background, and a pop of color on the button, something like that. Right. If we're looking here at themes, here you can see, oh, there we go. Right. You can kind of see a preview of it here as well. So you can get the idea. Like this is obviously, relatively neutral. This color here is maybe a little bright, but you can sit there and tinker with it for as much as you like. But I would generally recommend have a theme that's going to be complementary to all the books in a series. If you have standalone books, then yeah, you can kind of do what you want with them, and they can each have their own personality. There's probably a way too long-winded answer to that question. I recognize that.
Okay. Well, the next two questions, I'm going to kind of just briefly cover them because
Sure.
you basically just covered it. So Gail asks, how do you get the different colors, the purple on the BookFunnel background when your choices are light and dark? So you just went over that. Yep. And then Rosie says, do you recommend having a color theme for the series versus author brand if it's different? My hockey series was red, black, and white, but my author brand is various shades of blue. So it's sort of something you covered. I didn't know if you wanted to touch a little more on anything. But...
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. So your author brand and your a brand for your series, they might clash with each other. Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. So you have a couple of choices really here. So a few directions that you could go with that. For starters, right here on this landing page, you'll see the logo here is just white. So I'm just using one color. This logo by itself might have other colors in it, but simplify your logo down to one or two colors, right? Simplify it down. And I actually have an example here. This is an example of this logo. Can I hide this or zoom out? There we go. And I'm dragging stuff around. This is a template for the exact dimensions of a logo that you can upload to BookFunnel. 70 pixels tall by up to 300 pixels wide. And I just have this in kind of a light gray just so that it's easier to see, and black. Now, in actuality, you know, when you have your actual logo, right, maybe you have this in like some kind of gold color, and you have, you know, an accent mark here on the K. The K might be a different color. I'm just creating this out of thin air. And maybe you have a specific background color. Well, when you're presenting your logo by itself, maybe that makes sense. But when you're putting it on a landing page like this, you want it to be simplified, right? So that's what I would say. If you have a logo that clashes, or rather a brand whose colors clash with your series' branding, right? Simplify your branding, reduce it down to 1 or 2 colors that don't clash, and use that instead. Or just use your series branding for your theme instead. And so this, you would create a logo that is the name of your series instead of your author logo. And you could do that instead, because that already matches the theme, right? The thematic elements of that and everything. So either simplify your author brand when you're putting it on there. Think of it like a stamp, right? You really have, in this case, I reduced this down to like 1 color, right? So that it stands out also on the darker background. If it were a lighter background, I could use black, right? Or use the branding of the series itself in that case. And Kelly, what, there was a first part to that question. Can you, I just want to make sure I didn't miss that.
The question was, do you recommend staying with the color theme for the series versus the author brand if those are different? So
Oh, was that the first question or the second question?
that was the second question. The first
Okay.
question was from Gail, and it was, how do you
Yes.
do the colors? How do you change the colors for
Sure.
the background before it's basically just in the theme?
Yes. Okay. So if you're here and we have this theme created already, but if you wanted to change this, you can edit the theme. When you create a new theme, that's the first thing you'll do. But if you already have one, you'll come here and you'll edit it. And once we edit, you'll see I'm able to come in here and change these codes. I can drag this around as well. And let me do this. In fact, I can drag this around and try to find a new color, right? I don't usually recommend this unless you're really familiar with how this works. This can just be really confusing, and you wind up with a really ugly shade of whatever that is. And so that's why I recommend instead, I'm going to replace that. You use Canva's color palette generator. I will drop a link to this in the Zoom chat for everybody. Whoops. It just allows you to upload an image. Let's see if I can, you know what I'm going to do here? Let me actually grab this. Yep, that works. And whoop. Okay, now my computer's thinking for a moment. I guess it has to make a decision on that. Anyway, I'll upload an image here in just a moment. Oh, well, that's odd. Okay, yeah, it's taking a moment there. Anyway, you can upload an image. Let me see if it'll let me do it. Yep, there we go. And there we go, perfect. So it's given me these colors to work with. Now, it will, in my experience, it will always pull the same colors. So if there's a specific color on here that it didn't pull, then you might have to do some digging around. There are a lot of other applications too. Any application that has like what is it? The dropper icon. I'm on a Mac, right? So for those of you on a PC, this might not be helpful. But what I do is I open up Pages on my Mac, and it has a window that you can open up that shows your colors. It usually shows like a crayon box. There's an option there for you to select the dropper, and it will allow you to click on anything on your screen, even outside of the window you're working on in Pages, and it will give you the hex code for that specific color. And I use that all the time. But this would be an easy way to get these codes. And then I would just come here, and you can literally just click and copy this. So it's giving me this, it's called this color Shark. And then I would just come in here and I would put that maybe as the background on the top. I realized that I'm changing, actually not a bad color even for this color palette here. And it will replace that color and so forth. So you can, where was I? Here I am. So you can just copy those right from here, which is why I recommend this, because it will usually give you some good contrasting colors. Like it's given a dark color here. Maybe some of these could be a little bit more pastel, right? A little more faded out, which might be a little bit better for a background, but it's a starting point if you don't know where to start and you don't know how to do that. But yes, I recommend that you use these codes because that it will give you a specific color. Whenever you put in 23292F, it'll give you this exact specific color. These hex codes are just, it's basically just putting all the colors on the color wheel and giving them a name is the way to think of it. So you have like these two here, I want them to be exactly the same. I can just copy and paste that over instead of having to come over here and try to find the exact spot where my cursor was on that color field there. So that's how you would, if you're using a custom theme, that's how you would change those colors. Now, if you don't want to mess with this as much, and you're like, custom theme, that's too much work. Okay, no big deal. We have a landing page here. Under our landing page settings, you have your page theme and you have your accent color. And you can preview this, and so it'll show you this is the default. Maybe I want a black and gray theme, excuse me, and that's what that will look like. And maybe instead of blue, maybe I want a light blue, and that's what that will look like. And then if that's simpler for you, right? Or here, let's see if we can, I think the pink is more of a hot pink. Perfect. There we go. Right? Right. That might be the color scheme for you. And maybe you don't need to fuss with a custom theme. If you don't want to, you can keep it really simple. Right. So, well, you know, no pun intended, but there's a rabbit hole you can go down here with themes, right? And the appearance of your pages, right? You could really go in and like pick the perfect colors for your background and the text, and you could spend a lot of time on that. Or you could just like keep it really simple. It's up to you. Also, really nice thing to point out here on this preview. This is showing you what it's going to look like on a desktop, tablet, mobile device, just with these three little icons here, right? So if you just want to quickly see, okay, what's it going to look like? A tablet is going to look fairly similar to a desktop, right? But it gives you an idea quickly to allow you to just preview and see the difference there between those different sizes. Okay. Anyway, moving on. What else do we want to go over here? Or what questions do we have? Emma, I think you're up next.
Two similar questions. Where do you recommend to put the reviews on your landing page? And you know, a question from Medilo about how reviews look on a landing page when it look junky. So overall aesthetics.
Yeah. So here again, let's use this one. So we have, this is the landing page we're working with. Reload. Okay. I didn't save that yet. Okay. So the description on here is honestly a little bit long, in my opinion. Probably 3 paragraphs, and these are also very wordy paragraphs. But I probably would like to see the description like end right about here. And honestly, the way to do this is to visually look at the page. And if you scroll so far that you can no longer see the button, you shouldn't be continuing to read the book description. Anything that's below that point where you can no longer see the button should be extra stuff. It's okay to have stuff there because there are going to be some readers who visit the page and are really curious and they want to check everything out. Right? So there's a reason why you can put things at the bottom, right? But once they're past the button, the book description should be done, right? We don't want to go much farther than that. Okay. Even so, on a mobile device, you'd want to look at those in both ways. But what I would probably do here, if I come to my of course, we're using the page text. So let me actually copy this over so I can demonstrate in the same window. So here's my description. And again, honestly, probably a little wordy, Could be a little bit more concise, but I can come down here onto a new line. I would probably change this to italics and be like, the most amazing book I've ever read with 3 exclamation marks, right? I might put like Amazon reviewer or maybe their first name, right? Whatever it happens to be, right? I wouldn't put their full name on there unless it's from a like a professional review service or a known individual. Like, if Kevin J. Anderson read my books, Kevin, if you're watching, please, and said, oh yeah, these are amazing. Yeah, then I could name drop him. But just your random reviewers, maybe their first name at most, but you can just say like where they came from, right? Or maybe this is Goodreads, right? Now, is this a great review, this one specifically to put on your landing page? Probably not. I have a good one though. Again, I write space opera, science fiction. This is how did they phrase it? That was one of my reviews. It was like Star Trek on steroids. It's small text there. They're saying like it was like this, but that. And I'm not saying that this one specifically, but where they're like, the reader is essentially saying, like, describing what it is, right? Qualitatively, this is what it is. This is what it was like to me, right? Or it reminded me of this. I think those tend to be the most effective. If you just have some fanboy or fangirl in your reviews who's like, oh, it was amazing. Sure, maybe not. And the long-winded descriptions where they're going into like each character and each aspect of the plot and how much they loved it, probably too long for a landing page. But something, and this is actually one line from that review. This is not the complete review, right? But this is one line from that review and that I took. And so something like that, where they're saying, this is what it's like to me, or this is how I saw this, or even something as simple as, I really enjoyed the characters. They reminded me of Captain Picard, right? I don't know, right? Something like that. And so these are the types of reviews that I think work well. I would make them like this, where it's in italics, right? So that there's a clear delineate, like, this is the description, now it's over. It's also not necessarily a bad idea to include some sort of spacing here. These are underscores. The nice thing about underscores is that they butt up against each other. And so you can put a whole bunch of underscores here and it creates this divider. It creates a line that says the book description ends, here's a review, right? You could also do, some asterisks, something like that if you wanted to. Right? You could do that as well, right? But that's a choice. You don't have to put a divider there between a description and a review necessarily, but you could if you felt that made it look a little better. And I would include if you have like a couple of short reviews like this that are one sentence, I would do no more than 3. If you have one where it's like, a longer review, maybe just leave it to 2. Okay, you get the idea. Like, it would be something longer than this where it takes up more space, might move to a second line, keep it at 2, right? As long as they're brief. And again, I would not include like a entire paragraph from someone's review where they're going on and on about how they love your characters necessarily. I hope that was there a 2-parter to that one as well. You guys keep throwing these 2-parters at me, and I latch on to one part of the question, and then I feel bad because it's not that the other part of the question wasn't good, but that I get so focused on one of them.
Well, one was where would you put them on the landing page, and then the other one was, how would they look? So you covered, I think, both of those.
Yeah. Another place to put a review on your landing page is actually on heading 1. And and that's maybe a little weird. Let me show you how this would look. It's going to totally clash with the book cover because this is some weird horror themed thing, but just look at the text, right? It wouldn't be out of place here on heading 1. So that's another place you could put it if you wanted to, if you have a really good one. I'm not even saying that mine is the one like that's the best ever, right? You might have a better one-liner from a reviewer that you could put here in quotes, and maybe even cut out this part.
1-star reviews.
What was that?
One of those 1-star reviews for dark romance authors.
Oh yeah. That right. You could do that too if you wanted to lean into that sort of thing. Really like putting 1-star reviews on out there and using them for marketing purposes. Number one, it shows you have a sense of humor, which makes you more relatable and engenders trust. And number two, it again, all the things we talked about, it can actually be more useful than a 5-star review because they're pointing out the things that they didn't like, but your actual audience likes. And it also shows that you have nothing to hide. Right. So take all that with it. I wouldn't use a 1-star review that's like a legitimate criticism, and they're like maybe an armchair reviewer, like really picking apart your writing, and I probably wouldn't use one of those. But if they really go into like, these are the parts of the books I didn't like, and it's clear that they weren't your target audience, then yeah, you could. But the last thing I wanted to say is if you were going to do that, I would just leave it in quotes. So I would do this. Oop, I'm reloading it. Hold on. Did it save? I thought it saved. I saved it. Oh, I deleted it from the wrong place. That's why.
Yeah.
I got to delete it in the heading. There we go. Because this implies, okay, this is the quotation marks there imply that it's from a reviewer. Anyway.
I can't remember. Can you use emoji stars?
So if you try to put, so what, where is it? I need a star. I believe it will show up there. So yep, you could add stars and so forth. Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was something we could do. Yeah, I thought it was. But
yes. Yes. It may depend a little bit. Different devices will render them differently. So always keep that in mind, but yeah, you can. There's also some very basic like text based icons that are they're like the precursors to emojis, that they're Unicode. For those of you who know what Unicode is, symbols and so forth. Those can sometimes look a little cleaner because they can match the font color. Maybe emojis aren't on brand for you. And so you can use like it's a Unicode star symbol. I don't know the exact Unicode for it. Otherwise I could pull it up. But if you're on a Mac, I think you have to, it's your keyboard settings lets you pull up all those symbols in addition to emojis. On a PC, I'm not sure how you would find that, but it's Unicode, so it should exist and should be accessible. Regardless of what you're working with, like even things like the Unicode symbols that includes are like, it includes chess pieces, domino pieces. It includes all of the suits of cards. So there's like symbols for clubs and hearts and spades, and there's Unicode symbols for all that and even more stuff, right? And the reason that those exist is because it's mathematics. It's like always, it's the scientists, right? They made the cool stuff for their things, and then we all hijacked it, right? That's why we're here talking over the internet, because they wanted to share data with each other. But there's lots of complex mathematical symbols that needed to exist and be usable on a computer. So they made Unicode for it, and you could use those symbols just like you were typing. And then somebody thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I could, make Unicode of a chess piece and all these other symbols and hearts and stars. And so those are some of the precursors to emojis, and they might work a little better in certain circumstances. I'm not fully prepared to demonstrate that here, I realize, but things like that might be better than emojis in certain contexts.
Okay. So Jonathan is asking, what are the advantages of using a BookFunnel landing page as opposed to one of our own landing pages?
Yes, good question.
On the
So
website,
it depends.
sorry.
It depends on the context. I was hoping I was going to have some fun data to share, but unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to meet with this author yet. I have preliminary data. I guess I have the numbers, but I haven't spoken with her to kind of try and get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I'm sure she would love to hear that I described her in that way. What I mean is that I haven't heard from her directly about it, but she ran an experiment with Facebook ads pointed at a landing page, and I believe this was for direct sales, so keep that in mind. But she noticed a higher conversion rate when using BookFunnel landing pages. Is what she noticed. And I think there's a few reasons for this. I think number one, it's the engendering trust thing we talked about earlier, where this person is just seeing your ad on Facebook and they clicked on it and they've shown up at a landing page. And sometimes it's better when they can see that, oh, they're using this service to deliver this thing to me. That can actually engender some trust. There might be some other elements, just the simplicity compared to what other options are out there. Maybe might be a difference, but there is something there. I have to dig in deeper to it, so I'm not going to be able to at this moment tell you all the reasons why, but we have some strong evidence that that's the case. Now, could you apply all these techniques and all the things we've talked about to your own landing pages on your website? Absolutely. Absolutely. However, one of the reasons, actually, this is one reason I should have mentioned this earlier. But in this context, it should make more sense. The one thing you'll notice here on this landing page that I've just totally butchered because I customize it in a weird way, it's clearly not a website. So any landing page you use, what you'll notice is there's not a lot of things here to distract you from the thing that I want you to do. I want you to download this book. So if you were going to use your own landing page, I would make sure remove any navigation that's unnecessary at the top. Get rid of it. You want them to come to this page to do something, right? This isn't your website where they can maybe peruse around and read your blog and all this stuff, right? Whatever landing page you're using, minimize the navigation completely. Notice here we have the need help icon, right? This would be the logo. This might be the BookFunnel logo on some of your pages, right? But that's it. There's nothing up here at the top to distract from, from the intended purpose of the page. And so that, I think, could be a big factor, because that's just not here on a BookFunnel landing page, and it's simplified and streamlined, right? So there's a lot of factors that could go into it, but you could absolutely use your own landing pages. It would depend. If you're using it for sales, right? Then yeah, you'll probably, in some cases, you might not even want to use the landing page. You might want to send them directly to Amazon. Totally acceptable to do that. I have an experiment that I actually want to run on that to see if there's a difference in sell-through rate, even though there's an extra click if you send them to a sales landing page first. I don't have an answer on that, but that is something that I'm curious about myself. And then if you're giving away a reader magnet, it's probably better to send them to a BookFunnel landing page. That's the real use case for a BookFunnel landing page, right? And I'm, being frank and honest here, you're going to have there's going to be a lower conversion rate in the end, right? Because what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate, in your mind, you might be thinking, I want them to get on my list. but that actually comes before they download the book. And so really, if you're looking at your conversion rate, you could look at it as, okay, I send them to my own landing page, they sign up for my mailing list, and then I send them an email with a link to a BookFunnel simple download page, and I do BookFunnel on the back end. That can work just fine, but there's some extra steps in there, including opening up their email and so forth. If you're wanting to deliver a reader magnet, and you might get them on your list, but then you lose them before they can get the book. And it's not useful to you to just have somebody on your list who didn't download your free reader magnet, because they're probably just going to unsubscribe the next time you send them an email because they got confused some point, in the process. Also, why you should have a welcome sequence no matter what you're doing, right? That to ensure that everything goes smoothly, and to follow up with them if they had trouble, right? That's something else entirely. But when they come to a BookFunnel email collection page, they submit their email and they download their book all from one place. And so it all happens in one place. The act of them giving their email over to you coincides with them getting the book, and that's all satisfied. And that's why you would want to that's why you'd want to use a BookFunnel landing page for that. There are some situations where it's kind of flexible, and you could or you wouldn't have to, and you can kind of do what you want. Ads, for example, that are pointing to a book you have for sale, right? Yeah, maybe typically you'll point them straight to Amazon, or you'll point them straight to your direct store. Or if you're wide, maybe you would really want to point them to a landing page that has links to multiple stores on it. So it depends on the circumstance. Depends on the circumstance. Sometimes as well. Okay. Moving right along here. We're at about 12:30, so we've been going for a while, right? So I know if some of you have to head out, I appreciate you guys sticking around, but if we still have more questions, we'll go ahead and continue going through those if there's something somebody wants to see on the dashboard here. So
we've got about 3 more questions and a request to demo
sure.
landing page, I guess, from scratch. We've had a couple of niggles that.
Oh, is that the question?
Just a couple of
scratch?
requests, like show, like from scratch.
Sure. Sure. So
Questions first, if you want to do that, or how do you want to do
right. So here we've got let me grab a book. What book do I want to go with? Here. We'll use this one. What's in the Pantry? It's another one of our demo books. So first of all, already done the work here on the book details, uploading the book cover. And in this case, I don't know that I have, I don't have a description. Nope. So none of this information is here yet. So I could put all this information here. So I would have to sit here and think of a good tagline. This is not something that I can do under pressure. I'm sorry, folks. But a good tagline would go here, something like that. Obviously not something like that. You know what I mean? Take some time, think about it. Your tagline, your description would go in these places. I recommend you put them under your book details. Because it's going to be easier when you create your landing pages. You're not going to have to add these details to each of your landing pages each time you create one, right? So your book description, right, will go here, and that's going to get populated automatically on your landing pages. Okay. So if somebody can think up a good tagline for what's in the pantry and put it in the Zoom chat, I'll paste it in here. But on the spot here, I'm just trying to demonstrate. And so I can throw all that in my tagline, my description, right? Sorry, I just saw Jan's suggestion. I'm guessing that's a suggestion for the tagline. I'm gonna have to take that, Jan. Thank you. A good feed. There we go. Okay, we'll go with that. Thank you, Jan. But whatever makes sense. And again, the book description is, again, probably going to be multiple paragraphs. And so maybe we have our book description looks something visually like this, right? Let's say approximately like that, right? And note to readers, this is optional. This is a place where you could put an alternative call to action because it's really easy to come and change this if you wanted to without having to redo your whole description, right? But we'll save and close that. And so we have that now under our book details. So now we want to add a landing page. We'll just come up here. We'll add one. We're going to do a simple download page for now, just so I can show this quickly. And we'll just do, let's call this pantry demo page. We'll call it that, right? And our landing page settings here, I recommend starting with the BookFunnel default layout. I personally don't like the 3D effects, but you might like it. That's totally fine. I can keep the page theme and accent color first if I wanted to, but you know what? There's orange, and let's just embrace the orange and black on this one, for example, because those are already colors of the book, the book cover. I might not like it after I'm done, right? But I can change the book title. This is what's going to appear on the browser above the search bar. That's the title of the page there. Right, get my book. I could say something like, instead of grab, my book, or something like claim my free copy, right? Those are, I'm just trying to throw out some additional examples. You don't have to put this in the first person. So you could say claim your copy. It can sometimes be in the second person. It doesn't always have to be in the first person as well. But I know I pointed that out earlier in the presentation, but you don't have to stick with that, right? And then you have your tagline. Is typically what's going to be here on heading 1 by default, but you could choose not to show this text if you prefer not to. This will say download your copy of book title. This one works pretty well. Or you can use a custom heading. If you use a custom heading, this is only going to apply to this one page. On heading 2, it'll use by default download your copy of title. And so if you already have your tagline uploaded, it makes that kind of tagline call to action combo that I talked about really simple. It's literally the default settings. But maybe you are making this available for a limited time and you want to have it say that you have this many days to claim your book, and you're going to put in an expiration date. Or maybe you want to have something else there that shows the number of copies available using one of our custom variables. And you're going to set a download limit. I do this for ARCs when I give away ARCs through a landing page, which I do. I use a landing page for that for a number of reasons. I'm not going to go into that because we're not talking about ARCs specifically in this context. But I set a download limit, and it says there's only 25 copies available. And it says that on the landing page, and that's the call to action. And I usually put those out to all my subscribers, and then the ones who really want to jump on it, jump for it. And it's all good, right? But you can do you, right? So you have options, right? Custom variables, if you were going to use those, we have a knowledge base article on this. If you go to authors.bookfunnel.com, look up custom variables for landing pages, you can find a full list of them, and you would just add them here in a custom heading, right? If you have trouble with those, let us know. But they're usually pretty simple. By default, the page text is going to use your book's description, but if you wanted to, you could customize it. If you customize it, it's only going to apply to this one page. It's not going to apply to any other pages you've created for this book, right? And that's really the long and short of it. If we're talking about the appearance of your page here, I could then preview this with those settings. Hey, the orange is maybe a little off. I could make a custom theme so that orange matches, but you'll see, let's look at this on mobile. Okay, not too bad. Again, maybe this is a book that I'm really pushing hard during the month of October, right? So the black and orange isn't going to be a problem. It also matches the book cover as well in this case, right? And we scroll down here. We do have this link because it's a simple download page. So I do want to point that out. On a simple download page, this link will always be present. right? If you're using an email collection page or a sales landing page or a restricted page, this link will actually be a sample link, and you have the option to show it or not. So you could choose not to. Book description right there. You'll notice we've gotten just past the button, and the description is over, right? And so that means they can read it and easily just scroll right back up and find the button, right? Same thing here. In fact, they can see the whole thing on a desktop. They can see the button and the description right there. And then if you wanted to apply a custom theme to this, it would show up here in this drop-down menu as well. So if you created a custom theme, right? This is an example theme. This is totally going to clash, but if I save this, I can, where did I put it? Oops, nope, I was previewing it, that's right. And then you'll see I'm using that custom theme. So if you've created a custom theme already, which you do from your theme settings, right, then you can add that from this drop-down menu as well. But that's from scratch how you would do it. A lot of the work gets done under your book details, where you're adding the tagline and description. And then really when you're creating the landing page, it's just choosing how you're going to arrange those things and where you want them to go.
Okay, so Connie was asking, I'm with Card, it's my host, and I'm creating a website, and I can create a landing page, but is it better to create my landing page with BookFunnel instead, or would I do it with MailerLite or carrying on with Card? So I guess it's more back to like, which is better, your mailing service, your website?
Again, it depends. Are you just asking them to sign up for your newsletter and you're not giving away a free book? Then your mailing list service is best for that. Are you giving away a reader magnet and you want them to join your mailing list and do that at the same time? Or I should say, you want them to join your mailing list and get the book. I say a BookFunnel landing page is superior in that respect. And for the reasons I explained earlier, it's all happening at once. It's part of the same process, and they're not having to jump around and get potentially lost in the shuffle. And then they're on your list, which is great. That's what you wanted, but they didn't get what they wanted. And that's where I was trying to say the true conversion rate there is when both parties get what they want, which is they're on your list and they get the free book. That's your success rate. That's your conversion rate. And so the one issue with using your own landing page when you're delivering a reader magnet is you often have to deliver either a link or a file by email. This is the whole reason why BookFunnel even exists, right? From way back in the day, right? When we came up with this, when Damon I knew Damon before that, by the way. I've known Damon for a long time, but I can't take credit. It's all on him. But that it simplifies the process. So they go to that landing page, they submit their email, and they get the book all from one place. That's how I would recommend doing it. But there is definitely a place for using your own landing pages. I have some of my own landing pages that aren't on BookFunnel, because sometimes there's BookFunnel landing pages have a very specific purpose. Sometimes I'm using a landing page for something else. That's fine. A lot of these things will apply to that as well. A lot of these principles apply to that as well.
All right. Vash is asking, do you find sending Facebook traffic to a bundle page converts better versus to an individual person series landing?
There's a certain type of reader that will convert better when you send them to a bundle page. The analog to this, if you were sending them directly to Amazon, for example, would be sending them to your series page. So if you don't, right, depending on how you run your ads, right? Both of those are kind of similar. There's a certain type of reader that's going to convert better when you do it that way. And there's a certain type of reader that's going to convert better when you send them to a single thing and there's less distractions. I would say generally the conversion rate is probably better when you're sending them to a single place to do one thing right? And really, when you're sending them to a bundle page, I realize it's a single page, that there's, I realize that it's a single place in that sense, but there's multiple book covers on there. It should be very clear if you do that, what they're supposed to do there. It should be very, very clear what they're supposed to do. And so typically I would recommend, if you're going to do this, let me go to, well, actually I have it. So on this bundle page, the first cover is featured. And so it's bigger. This is an option you have on your bundle page settings to make that cover larger, so it stands out. If you send them here, you've got this text. You can put links here as well if you need to. You've got the header image, which is great, kind of sets the tone. Maybe you'd, for ads, maybe you'd want to use something simplified, or maybe not even use one at all. Right. And then you have, they can see, oh, it's a whole series. Okay, cool. But there has to be some indicator to them that they need to go here, and then they need to click this, and they need to do a thing. And so that would be the tricky part with the bundle page. You can do it, but it's how you present it.
Yeah, in certain niches like fantasy romance, the readers prefer if it's a completed series. So that
Right.
study, they can see, okay, it's a completed series, but I'll start with book one.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why box sets also have higher conversion rates, especially when you get those fancy images that show all the books, in a, there was one author running ads on Facebook. I don't know this author personally, but his series was like 20 books long. So it was this huge box set image, like you couldn't tell what number the last one was on. It was maybe a little extreme, but I bet, it gets readers' attention, like, oh, wow, okay, cool. And that's a different strategy. It's a different way to do it. But generally speaking, yeah, the trick is that you want to communicate to the reader that it's a series. You want to communicate, oh yeah, there's all these books in this series, but by the time they've scrolled all the way down and they've gotten down here, do they know what to do? Do they know what to do at this point in time? And is there something funneling them to a specific action that they need to take? What I would do, honestly, if I were, let's say this is my series, right? And I decided to totally change genres, right? What I would do, I would first of all reduce this text, make it larger. You can do that in the settings, have it hyperlinked to the place I want them to go and buy. I would, on this book cover, I would customize this in Canva, and I would put maybe a little starburst in the bottom corner that says something like start here, something like that. And then at the very bottom, I would create a book on my dashboard that has a book cover that is an image that is a call to action and says, click here to start reading series, or click here to start reading for free, or download the free prequel episode, whatever. And that points them to either another landing page, or it is in fact an email collection page. It's another call to action down here, and I can use that book cover as an image and then put that at the bottom down there. I see, Vash, you also had a question. Once your page with limited copies goes live, can you update that limit so you can raise it from 100 to 200, let's say? Yes, you can. And I do that myself. When I send out ARC copies to readers, I usually I set it at like 25, and then I'll like check it obsessively and be like, okay, it's down to 3. Let me add 25 more. And then I'll do that. I'm guilty of it. Because yeah, if you're like, I want to give away 200 ARC copies, but if I put 200, it's not going to create the same amount of urgency as opposed to like, having it set to 25 or whatever. So yeah.
Great. I think we're on the last question that we have on our doc here. Jennifer is asking, How do I tell how many download stats I get from one specific landing page versus another in the use case where I have multiple landing pages?
Gotcha. So if you have we come to our landing pages here. Let me get rid of this. There we go. So this can be a little, so let's see, for example, I don't have a lot of downloads to show on this account. That's the one thing. But if you're looking at an individual page, so this is the page details. If I'm looking here at the download stats, I can see views and downloads and then a rough conversion. But keep in mind, this is a conversion of views to downloads on a download page. This number might be bigger than your actual conversion rate, because where did you put the link to this page? Is this page linked on your website? Well, the views that are being counted here are the number of people that show up on the page and viewed it. And so theoretically, the views to downloads should be a higher conversion than the people who came to your website and saw the link to this page and just chose not to click it. And so that's where you have to do a little bit of backtracking. So that's something you have to think about. If you're really wanting to kind of compare and get a snapshot, well, you can go and look at that data and then you can compare it. But here on the home page as well, and this is a really bad example again, because this is a demo account. It doesn't have a whole lot of downloads coming through it, but you can see downloads in the last 30 days, and you can see it by individual sources. So we'll show you, like, do you have a direct sales delivery action that's delivering this book? Do you have a specific landing page that's delivering this book, or different landing pages? And you can see that. But otherwise, yes, you will need to compare here and see, okay, like if I'm looking at my download pages, for example, right, I can come check on this one and see, okay, let's say maybe it has 25 downloads, right, out of 100, right? And then I can go and compare that as well. So yes, that's how you'd go about doing that. It would be, it would be kind of cool if you could like see a whole big chart. Well, another thing, now that I'm thinking about it, let me see here. There's another way that you could do this. Oh, I need one that has lots of landing pages connected to it. And that's the tricky part here. Let me actually back up. Download pages. Let's look at, well, okay. Yeah, this will have to work. Okay. So I'm looking at my book stats now, right? So these are my book details. Now I can scroll down here and I can see all those stats for my individual landing pages. And so that's the views, claims, and conversion. Claims will be downloads on a simple download page, right? Is the way to think of it. But otherwise, claims is they submit their email address. And so we can see here, this one got some downloads because it was accidentally left in a group promo.
That's right. I was trying to figure out who's reading that book.
I was showing in a orientation how to add a book to a promo, and I added it, and then I left a note because it was one of Emma's promos. I'm gonna shift all the blame to Emma right now because I can't. I'm kidding. But I left a note asking her to remove it, and then I forgot about it too. I should have removed it, but that's how that happened. That's how that happened. So question here from Anne: if you kill a landing page, why does it still show up on the main page? Well, first of all, what do you mean by the main page? And second of all, it's there. This might be what you mean, where it's crossed out? That's to remind you of what you did. You killed it, and you need to be reminded about that and feel guilty. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, bad joke. That aside, you might want to come, this is expired. You might want to unexpire this or reactivate it, right? So it's crossed out here because it's expired, meaning if we go and we view it, it's expired, but it's still here and I could edit it and customize it and reactivate it. Don't feel guilty, right? Landing pages get killed every day. Don't worry about it. That's not a big deal, but yes, it will live there on your dashboard for that purpose. So you can come back and reactivate it. Now, if you delete it, like you legitimately come here and you delete this page, it will be hidden from you, but not from us. we can still see it, BookFunnel admins, and we can actually undelete your stuff too if you need to. So email us and we can resurrect it, as Emma is saying. If in case maybe you delete it and realize, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I feel bad. Yeah, you just let us know.
Okay.
Connie has some questions about GDPR here, and what I would say with GDPR, you can use GDPR settings, but if you don't, let me show this on a landing page. I should have an email sign up page. Let's edit this page details. Oops, not here.
Yeah.
Not here. We're under settings and then GDPR, because you can tell I use GDPR settings all the time for my own stuff. So this is set to do not change, but if I have it set to change, and then I save these settings, we'll come back to our email sign up pages. Let's go look at this one now, and you'll notice that it has changed this text. And it's changed the button text as well. This is overriding any custom text you might have put in there. You have the option to have this show only for readers who are in the EU. You have the option to show this for everybody. But if you're not happy with how this looks and this text, I recommend you customize the text to what you feel comfortable with. We are not lawyers, and is particularly not specialized in EU law. So if you have specific concerns and questions about how that applies, all I can tell you is you can use these settings, or if you don't like the appearance of this, you can choose to use your own custom text instead. Beyond that, knowing like if you're crossing a line in terms of how that law applies to you, I recommend consulting with a legal expert who knows the ins and outs of that. So, and you're trying to give your landing page a proper burial. I like it. I like it. Awesome. Well, we're coming up here on almost 2 hours. I didn't think that this was going to go this long, but it did. We had some really great questions. I appreciate that, folks. I hope this has been really helpful with all the questions that you guys had, and I hope this all makes sense. At the end of the day, right? I know I gave that whole pep talk at the beginning here. What I want you to do after absorbing all of this, maybe take a day, right? Maybe let it sink in, but go back to your landing pages and see, like, look at them with new eyes. Maybe ask someone for feedback on them, what have you, and see if there's some things you can tweak, right? See if there's some things that you can improve on in this department. And then when you're looking at your conversion rate, also think about, really focus on the big picture, right? I think that would be the other point that I would like to make, because if your conversion rate with your already converted readers is going to be higher than these new readers you're trying to engage with. So you don't want to have a false sense of security, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You want to know for a fact what your conversion rate is. This is really important if you're doing ads. If you're not doing ads, maybe not as important, right? You have some more wiggle room to work with. Obviously, when you're spending money, you want to know that it's converting. But from the beginning of the funnel, the very beginning, and you have to really maybe sometimes think about what is the actual beginning of the funnel to the end goal, which is to get them to convert to doing something. They're going to join your mailing list. They're going to buy this book, right? And that's the way you want to see it, is that big picture.
Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos from BookFunnel, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.